Paramus, a town located in the heart of Bergen County. A famous person once said, "How can we take a glance at something and know how importance it has?" And that is Paramus, a town that we live in today, and some of us don't even know how important it is. Many families, such as the Zabriskie family, immigrated from Europe coming for freedom, so they came to Paramus. Many wars were also fought during this time, such as the Revolutionary War, where we fought for our rights, our freedom. Although this next war didn't take place in Paramus, it was also a really big part, and it was the Battle of Malmö, again fighting for our freedom and rights. So why is Paramus important?
Paramus was important. Although no major battles were fought in Bergen County, Paramus was part of the military activity. December 1778, July 1780, and December of 1780. Following the Battle of Malmö, Washington established the headquarters in Paramus in July of 1778.
So this is Paramus, the town that we live in today.
David Terhune owned the house from 1713 to 1792. He was a weaver and a Patriot official. The house was then passed on to his son, John D. Terhune, who was also a freeholder. Later, the house was passed on to Thomas T. Gardner, a gentleman of New York City. The Gardner family owned the house until 1907. During the Revolutionary War, the Terhune-Gardner house was raided by the British 4 times. Eudocia Prevost managed the Hermitage and the homes. She took the leadership role, which was a major challenge for women.
Lydia Seward married John Watkins and had 5 children, one being John Watkins Jr. Before John went to the British Isles to protect his interests he inherited. While John was gone, Lydia took charge, moving her family from across the Hudson to Paramus to be near her mother and her sister.
The town of Paramus was once covered with nothing but farms and grasslands. What is now a cemetery was once nothing but open land. The Old Spring Valley Burial Grounds is located in the back of the Banky farm. The cemetery contains 2 people named Henry Banta and Jacobus Brower, who were both farmers and soldiers in the Revolutionary War. In fact, Henry Banta's farm even had mills that contained food for the militiamen. The river that divides the east and west side of Paramus was once called Sprout Brook River. The cemetery itself is located on the east side of the river.
Specific things that grew at the Banky farm were corn, celery, tomato, and cabbage.
Henry Banta had both a spouse and 2 children. His wife's name was Elizabeth Lake Banta, and his children were named Cornelius Hendrick Banta and John H. Banta. Henry Banta lived till he was 66 years old. There is even a man named Cornelius Demarest who is buried at this site. He wrote the 22nd Regiment in the Civil War. Henry Banta and Jacobus Brower were both farmers who signed up as militiamen to fight for what's right. Their small sacrifices led to a nation we are now proud of today.
One final thing about Paramus is that it was actually called the Garden State. It gets this name because New Jersey was once all farms.
General Washington and his troops marched into Bergen County from Orangetown, New York on August 23, 1780. When they arrived at Vanson, it had already been September 4th. They had encamped in Vanson for provisions and waited for the arrival of the French. This encampment was called the Steen Rampete. They held over 14,000 American troops. This lasted from September 4th all the way up to September 20th, 1780. This encampment stretched for 2 miles along the Kinderkamak Road.
During the encampment, Henrik C. Banta sold a barrel of cider from his mills to Washington troops every other day. His son Cornelius Banta saw Washington on his horse 3 times. Washington's presence here at Vanson Retreat gave this site its name, now known as Washington Spring.
You probably have seen this building before, but never knew its historical purpose. You might have seen it while driving on Red Mill Road or just walking by. It may be just an old building that doesn't function now, but during the American Revolution, it marks the site of a few events. The Red Mill is more important than you think. The Red Mill was built in 1745. During the American Revolution, it was owned by Jacob Zabriskie, along with an 80-acre farm known as Zabriskie's Mills. A sign near the mill says, "Scene of many raids and encounters during the Revolution." Aaron Burr was entertained here Christmas Eve, commemorating his victory over British raiders in 1776. Washington and his men often passed here. Lafayette stopped here on his return visit to America in 1825.
There were many British raids at and near the Red Mill. Aaron Burr celebrated his victory over a British raid at the Red Mill on Christmas Eve. Also, George Washington often passed here with his men.
So next time you pass by this building, think of its historical purpose in Paramus during the American Revolution.
War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. This is exactly what General George Washington did during the American Revolutionary War. He spent a very cold winter fighting for freedom from Britain in below freezing temperatures with little to no supplies. The men around him fought to the death, but he remained brave and strong, yet felt defeated at the same time. It was a constant struggle just to get through each day and night during the winter at Valley Forge. General Washington is honored all over the country today, specifically in Paramus, New Jersey. You can find the statue titled George Washington Kneeling in Prayer in the George Washington Memorial Park, located on Paramus Road. This statue, found in the cemetery, is 9.5 feet tall and stands on a 3-foot base. You can also find a similar copy of the statue at Valley Forge. We have this impressive statue in Paramus because during the Revolutionary War, George Washington marched his troops throughout this town as it was much bigger than it is today. During this period of time, Paramus as well as its surrounding towns were known as Steenrappie, which was a large area of land that General Washington and his troops visited. The sculpture was designed and sculpted by Donald DeLue, a famous sculptor who lived in Leonardo, New Jersey. He was born in 1897 and passed away in 1988. He lived for 91 years, but sadly did not live to finish his sculpture of General Washington. With his health falling to pieces, he arranged for Granville W. Harvard to complete the statue on behalf of himself. The statue represents General Washington asking God to protect his army during the horrific winter at Valley Forge. With his meaningful prayers and the colony's amazing strength, we separated from Britain and we are now a free country known as the United States of America.